everybody for joining us this morning. My name is Emily Kaiser and I am the Communications Manager at the Washtenaw County Road Commission. And today we are going to go over some improvements that we have planned on Bemis Road and at the intersection of Bemis and Carpenter Road. So before we dive into the meeting itself, just to go over our agenda and kind of lay out the land for today, is I've got a little bit of housekeeping I'm going to do right here at the start, and then I'm going to turn it over to our project managers to talk about the details of construction, and then we will open it up to Q&A after that, and I'll provide instructions as to how to ask questions in the Zoom format. So first I want to introduce our project managers. We've got James. He is the project manager for the road project. You'll hear from him first. And then we have Brent, then we have Aaron Bergholtz, and he is the senior project manager. And so his contact information is here. James's contact information is here as well. We'll provide this a couple times throughout the presentation, and so you don't have to furiously write it down right now. And then lastly, we've got Brent, and Brent is the project manager on the intersection project, which we will go over. So like I said, just a couple housekeeping items to keep in mind. So the meeting audio and video is currently being recorded, and it will be posted to wcroads.org and the Road Commission's YouTube channel in the next day or two. It'll also be posted to the project page itself. And there's a link I'm going to show you after we do our presentation where you can find the project webpage. There's also a link in the chat, and I'll offer that a couple different times so you can find that in the chat of this meeting if you're joining us from your computer. When we get to the Q&A period, we will ask you if you want to virtually raise your hand at that time to ask your question. And so I will provide instructions at that point as to how you can do that. And lastly, we do have chat enabled on this meeting. So if you want to ask your question in chat when you think of it during the presentation, just shoot me a message in chat and I will ask it for you in the Q&A period. So during Q&A, you can either ask a question verbally or through the chat feature on this meeting. And with that, I will turn it over to James, who's going to talk about the road part of this work, and then Brent will talk about the intersection after that.
Hi, good morning. Thanks, Emily. My name is James Hoy. I will be the project manager for the Bemis Road resurfacing. This is located on Bemis between Platt Road and Carpenter Road. Here's a quick map of where it is. We will be starting east of Platt. We won't be going into the intersection, and continuing east of that to Carpenter Road, and we'll be stopping just west of the intersection as well, where Brent will have his intersection work done. Next slide. So here's a quick current picture of Bemis Road. As you can see, it's starting to, it's looking pretty poor, which warrants a pulverizing and resurfacing with the Road Commission. So that's what we'll be doing on this road this year, is that we will come through and pulverize the existing asphalt road, and we will pave a new 4-inch asphalt layer on top of it. Along with that, we also are going to be doing some drainage improvements east of the bridge along the residential areas, just to make sure that the ditch are draining properly, and we'll be replacing several culverts and driveway culverts throughout the area. Next slide. So here's a picture of what pulverizing looks like. As I said before, we're going to be crushing the existing asphalt surface, so it will look kind of sandy, kind of loose. It is still drivable for all the locals that are living in this or working in this area, but it will be closed off to through traffic. Next slide. So once we pulverize it, we'll definitely have to, tamper it down and make sure it is stable before we put our asphalt down. So here's a picture of us actually putting asphalt material down on a pulverized surface on a separate project. Next slide. And I will pass this off to Brent to talk about his intersection job.
Thanks, James. So the intersection of Bemis and Carpenter was included in the countywide millage that was voted on by the residents within Washtenaw County, and it was slated for this coming year in 2021. So we went through and designed the intersection. It was planned as a traffic signalized intersection through the millage, and whenever we look to improve this intersection, we look at the intersection as a whole, and we look at the laneage, and there was currently left turn lanes on Bemis Road, and there was actually a right turn, southbound right turn lane on Carpenter. So it just made sense to just finish and widen it out based on the right of way that we had available. It just made sense to continue with the traffic signal. So we will be widening Carpenter Road to include a, well, there we go, yep. So I guess through the schedule of the events, there is a couple utilities that will need to be relocated. We'll be widening the road for center left turn lane on Carpenter Road. This will include new curb and gutter on the radiuses for the intersection. And then we'll be installing a traffic signal. It'll be a box span traffic signal. And the reason it basically looks like a box when you look from the overhead like this picture. It will include the flashing yellow left turn signals for Carpenter Road. And so it'll be set up similar to the picture you see on your screen now.
So just to talk about the timeline and construction schedule, Bemis Road is slated to start as early as next Monday. This is when we'll start working on the ditching work and removing and replacing a bunch of the culverts. And it's slated to finish around late May to early June. Really depends on the weather and what our contractor's schedule is like. Definitely provide a more detailed schedule once we receive that from the contractor. And then the intersection itself will start after the resurfacing work is done. And we're anticipating this to be in mid-June at the earliest, and it'll take about 8 weeks. Next slide. So for impact to traffic, Bemis Road, while we do the resurfacing, will be closed to through traffic. What this means is that those that work and live within our project limits are still allowed to have access to the property, but other cars, other traffic that will be utilizing this road as a through traffic will not be allowed. And then the intersection, when we do the work, it will remain open. There will be intermittent shoulder closures or lane closures, but the intersection will be open through the project itself. Next slide. As hard as it is to believe, road close signs don't always help everybody in understanding that roads are closed. We've had a lot of incidences where people drive through signs, ignore our closures, ignore our warning signs. If we can, please, if you do see a road close sign, please be aware and please just adhere to it as you see it. Next slide. So here's the posted detour for the Carpenter Road resurfacing project. This will take you down on Platt Road to Willis Road, back up to Carpenter. Again, the stretch between Platt and Carpenter Road on Bemis Road will be closed to through traffic. So if you are a traveling motorist that don't work or live in the area, please, drive around, follow this detour. Next slide. And just to make you aware, we do have a bunch of other projects that could be happening at the same time. As you can see on this map, if you can also visit our website, there will be a more detailed explanation of each of these projects and what they mean and how they would impact the roads in this area. Next slide. For mail delivery and trash pickup, everything would be maintained by our contractor. Typically, mail delivery services and trash services will be able to drive through. If anything does change, we will reach out before the project starts or during the project. And then we will be impacting the frontage of your property. So we will be performing restoration once the project is completed. Next slide. And you can visit our project page at wcroads.org. Emily does a great job with updating these with our current statuses of our project. So if you have any questions or concerns, you can always contact us or look us up on the website. Our contact information is also listed on this slide. So again, if you have any questions or concerns, please let us know, and we'll do our best to address this. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Aaron, is there anything that you wanted to add? I'm going to show the group where you can find that project page that James was talking about, but Aaron, is there anything you want to add?
There is, and thank you, Emily, and Brent and James, thank you for all the good information. Just a few additional notes that I'll state for the record here. James certainly provided a good overview of this work on Bemis Road between Platt and Carpenter, including a road closure. And again, we will be maintaining access for the properties that are within the closed area, but for if motorists and those that need to access those properties, they could be thoughtful about which end is closest. And what I mean by that is if you look at the segment that's west of US 23, you know, the correctional facility is there, the Center for Psychiatry, I'm sorry, I probably am not stating the name correctly, but that's located there across the street from the correctional facility. And again, if you need to go to one of those properties, it would be best to come from Platt Road. And then when you get east of 23, and so that would be Aaron's Lawn Care and the residential properties that are there, it would be best for you to come from Carpenter Road, from that end, because that'll be nearest where your destination is, so that you're not trying to drive all the way through the construction zone to get to the other end of the job. They touched on, both Brent and James touched on the fact that these are two separate projects and are being constructed under two separate contracts. So the work that we're doing on Bemis Road that James is going to oversee, that pulverization and HMA overlay, that work involves federal aid. And as such, that's bid through the Michigan Department of Transportation. That bid has already been opened. The contract has been awarded. That's been awarded to Cadillac Asphalt, is the name of the prime contractor that'll be working with James. We've worked with Cadillac for many years successfully on various road improvement projects. So that's dictated by one schedule. Again, that's an MDOT contract work. We administer the work on behalf of MDOT. The project that Brent is going to be overseeing at the intersection, and Brent brought it up, this is being funded locally with millage dollars. And so again, that project is bid separately. We are advertising that job. We have a bid opening for that project in middle of May, and then we'll know who the prime contractor for that work is going to be. And then again, that's a separate schedule, but we've been thoughtful in trying to not perform the work on both projects concurrently, because we do need to use the detour that Emily is sharing with us right now. We need to send people through the Carpenter and Bemis intersection. So we didn't want to have Bemis Road torn apart and then at the same time have Carpenter Road under construction. And Brent's project won't involve closure, but there will be activities there. There's going to be shoulder closures. There's going to be lane closures with flagging. So again, we're trying to be thoughtful in the way we lay these projects out on the schedule. James noted it, and I'll say it again just to stress the point that it is so important that motorists adhere to the signage, that they follow direction that are given by traffic regulators, more commonly known as flaggers. That is very much to keep the road workers safe and to keep the motorists safe. And unfortunately, what we've seen over the last couple of years is it seems that there's a rise in motorists being frustrated and not complying with signage and with directions given by flaggers because they're frustrated, and understandably so. But we ask that motorists be aware of the safety, their own safety, and that of those that are working in that zone. There potentially could be some traffic backups, more so I would see on Brent's project. If we do get into the situation while we're performing that work, that intersection widening and that signalization, if we need a lane closure and you've got flaggers out there directing traffic, that certainly can be cause for traffic backups. So again, it's about the motorists being aware of the fact that they're approaching a construction work zone. So we will have inspectors on both projects. So there will be a road commission representative present on the project while the contractor's performing the work. And those inspectors are fairly easy to identify because they drive a road commission issued vehicle. And particularly for those that need to be within the work zone, that have business or are going to and from home within that work zone, if they experience some kind of an issue, they certainly can speak with the on-site inspector. Oftentimes, the inspector can aid them with whatever issue may have arisen, or certainly Brent or James are available for phone calls and emails to try to resolve issues that may arise. So those are just a few more notes that I wanted to offer, Emily.
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, I think it's really important. The safety part is that, as Aaron mentioned, we've seen the incidents of people just violating work zones, and we've actually seen some fatalities. Fortunately, not on any with our employees or our contractors, but certainly of road workers in the county. And so we really ask people, those signs do apply to you. We will provide you access to your home, like we've been saying, if you live within that work zone. But if you don't live within that work zone, please follow the detour or find an alternate route, because it really comes down to a safety thing for you as a driver, but also for the workers out there. And we also mentioned too, the closure applies to pedestrians. It also applies to people using their bicycles. And so really, if you don't need to be in the work zone to get to your home or to your business, we ask that you stay out of the work zone, and we'll try to get this road reopened as quickly as we can. So with that, I'm going to pause my screen share here for a second. I'm going to just show you how you can find out more about this project. So if you go to the Road Commission's website, which is wcroads.org, that's what I'm showing you here. We have a lot of information on here to try to provide a wide variety of information for the public. And so one of the things that we spend a lot of time updating in the spring and summer is our roadwork information. So if you go to roadwork and construction and you find our current projects map here, James mentioned that we do have a lot of projects in this area. And so this is a great place to find all the information as we are going into the construction season. If you're a maps person, you can find the map of all of our current projects here. These are our major projects on what are generally classified as primary roads. But you can see here, we've got the road and intersection project on Bemis Road. So if you click on the road segment, you can open this more info, which is the project page. If you go back to the map, if you are not a maps person, we all are at the Road Commission. We love maps, but we also have the projects listed here in a tile. So either way, it'll get you to the project page. And so each of these major projects have a page like this. And so here's the one for Bemis Road, the intersection and resurfacing. You can find some of the details here. And then we've got James's contact information here. We've got a link to the detour map, information about today's meeting. And then right here, you can click to subscribe to receive project updates. So if you'd like to have an email update, we'll try to do it about once a week or so, depending on how the project is going. But you can subscribe to receive them here. You just click this button. And then it'll take you to this page where you can subscribe to receive all sorts of road updates. So shameless plug, we do a lot of other road updates, not just project specific ones. So you can put your email address in there. We do advisories about road work by township. So if you're interested in things going on in York Township or things going on in Pittsfield Township, you can subscribe to receive those alerts here. You can also say you want to receive our weekly roadwork schedule that we send out. We just sent our first one for the season last week. That goes out every Thursday morning, and it's a look ahead of what roadwork do we anticipate for the next week. We also do a quarterly newsletter. Again, those advisories about road closures, lane restrictions going on by township. And then here you can see that we've got all of our different projects, our big projects of the year that we're doing individual updates on. So we've got the Bemis Road resurfacing and intersection. So you would just select that and then you would subscribe to receive those updates. And so we just want to show people how you can do that. But we've got lots of other information on the website. You can find the weekly roadwork schedule here as well to see what work we've got coming up this week that was sent out. It was posted last week. So just a lot of information out there for you to find. So let me get back to the slides and then we will go to our Q&A here. All right, so with that, we will open it up to questions. So if you would like to ask a question verbally, you can do that either from your computer, smartphone, or if you're joining us from your touch tone phone. If you are joining us from your computer or smartphone, first you want to click the reactions button at the bottom of your screen, and then there you should see the raise hand button. Zoom has recently updated, so it may still be under your participants button, but I think everybody should have the new update now, so it should be under reactions. And then if you're joining us from your phone, if you dialed into this meeting, you can raise your hand by dialing *9 at this time. You can always ask a question in chat as well if you'd rather ask a question in chat. And I'll do it again here. I'll put a link to the project page that I just showed you in chat. So you have that link fresh. Is there anybody that has a question for us? Here we go. All right, David, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay.
Okay, we can hear you. Go ahead with your question.
Okay. Excuse me. I'm just curious. What is the criteria for putting in a signal there? You know, I realize between when school's letting in and out, it can get very congested. But the rest of the time, you know, it doesn't seem like there's enough traffic to warrant a traffic signal.
Okay, great question. Brent, do you want to answer that one?
Sure. We use the Michigan Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. It's a federal document that evaluates based on the volume, crash history, delay, determine how many warrants are met for the intersection. And this intersection does meet warrants for a traffic signal. We typically look at, it's called a major warrant, and it would be that it would warrant a signal for 8 hours or greater, and this intersection does meet for that time period.
Okay, thanks, Brent. Looks like we've got a question from Richard. Richard, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can. Go ahead with your question.
Okay, did this get planned through a public forum, or how did it get decided upon? I'm mainly concerned about the intersection part. I live just east of Carpenter Road on Bemis, but that's already been decided a long time ago.
Yeah, Richard, I think, did you and I talk last week on the phone? Your voice sounds
Yes,
familiar.
we did. Yes,
Okay,
we
no,
did.
yeah, I'm glad you could join us. Brent, do you want to talk a little bit more about the intersection? I know when Richard and I talked last week, you know, a roundabout, a signal, just talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. So the intersection has met warrants, and we use that to typically determine if there should be an improvement. And then as we were putting the millage package together, we then reach out to the townships and county officials to determine, put together a plan. While in that plan, we had slated this intersection to be improved. With the current laneage that's out there and how it's currently set up, it was just, with the dollars that we have available through the millage, it just made most sense to go with a traffic signal option. And we'll be repaving Carpenter Road to include those left turn lanes, and then a short section of Bemis Road, the part that James won't be getting. We will be paving to the east, but very short, only 100 feet or so, just through the approach.
Okay, thanks, Brent. I know, Richard, when you and I talked last week, we do love roundabouts at the Road Commission, and they are great fits for a lot of intersections, but it doesn't mean they're the best fit for every intersection. So, Richard, it looks like you might have another question. Go ahead, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, I just wonder why a roundabout wasn't considered. It seems like a less expensive option. Actually,
a roundabout based on potential right-of-way needs, and other impacts, it would be a lot greater than the $300,000 that was made available through the millage. So we typically, when we construct a roundabout, it's normally over $1 million, right around $1 million to construct a roundabout. It just made most sense with this intersection to have a traffic signal. It will be a smart signal. It'll be connected to our smart system. It'll be, there'll be traffic detectors out there so that we'll be able to sense when traffic is on the side street or coming up Carpenter Road. So it will have those features part of the intersection.
Another
Thanks, Brent.
concern.
Oh, go ahead, Richard.
So they're going to put these traffic signals in. What kind of lighting are they putting in? That's another one of my concerns is light pollution from this.
There won't be any street lighting installed as part of this project. We'll just have the signals that will be
Great.
illuminated.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that's
Excellent.
another difference between a roundabout and a traffic signal, Richard, too. A lot of times when we do roundabouts, we have to illuminate the intersection. And so that's another, I guess, benefit in this case for you if you're concerned about light pollution of a traffic signal versus a roundabout. So, okay, thank you for those questions. Is there anybody else out there that has a question? Oh, it looks like we might have another. Oh, no, Dave Conkley is applauding us. I'm not sure if he's pro signals or what, but thank you, David. We'll always take the applause. Any other questions out there? Again, you can raise your hand virtually by dialing *9 if you've joined us from your phone, or you can do it by clicking the reactions button at the bottom of your screen if you're joining us from your computer or smartphone, and then you should see a raised hand button under that reactions option. Oh, it looks like we got another question from Richard. Go ahead, Richard.
Just on the road repaving, do they have to put in bike lanes now on all their 2-lane roads?
James, go ahead.
No, that's not a requirement, but we do have a wider shoulder that typically can also work as a bike lane, but we don't have a dedicated bike lane for this job.
James, off the top of your head, how wide is the paved shoulder and then the gravel shoulder will be? Sorry to put you on the spot.
No problem. Paved shoulder is going to be about 4 feet with 2 feet of gravel shoulder.
Okay, thanks, James.
Yep.
All right, thanks, Richard. Are there any other questions out there about this project? We've got more applause from David, so thanks, David. Again, you can also ask a question in chat if you're interested in asking a question in chat. While we're waiting to see if there's any other questions, there's a chance that the road closure will start a week from today, so the 26th. If that's the case, then we will later this week, we'll put out a project update to anybody who has subscribed to receive project updates on the webpage, like I showed you. We'll also do a road advisory out there. We'll put the information out on our social media. We're on Facebook and on Twitter. So we'll try to put that information out there a few days ahead of that closure. And you'll also see changeable message boards out there with the date of the closure as we get a little bit closer. It is supposed to snow later this week, so that could throw a wrench in our road work plans, but we'll see. Hopefully Mother Nature will be kind to us and it won't last very long. But it doesn't look like there's any other questions. Oh, let's see. Dave was trying to raise her hand and not applaud. Let's see, David, let me unmute you. Go ahead, David.
Okay, yeah, for some reason I don't have a raised hand. Anyway.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll take the applause too, but go ahead with your question.
Yeah. You sort of answered one of my questions, and I realize it has nothing to do with this project, but at the intersection of Platt and Bemis, there's a signal, and that seems there's plenty of real estate for a roundabout, and it seems like that intersection would be perfect for a roundabout, but you sort of answered the question between the cost and the lighting. So I just wondered why that wasn't considered.
Okay. Yeah, Brent, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about that, maybe how we select intersections. I do know, David, that we have a lot of intersections that would be great for a roundabout. It really comes down to funding and, other project priorities. But we're glad that you love roundabouts because we do too. They're really a great solution in a lot of cases, and we try to build them whenever we can. Brent, do you want to talk a little bit more about intersection selection maybe?
Sure. We We have a list of intersections that are currently warrant a traffic signal. And like I said earlier, we use that to mainly determine if there should be some type of improvement. Now, to have a roundabout doesn't necessarily mean it needs to meet signal warrants, but we're looking at where best to spend those precious dollars. So we look at that list, we look at what other impacts we have within the area, and then we sort of decide on or we evaluate what are the pros and cons of each improvement. We just had an intersection that we evaluated at Liberty and Zeeb that we chose a roundabout, and there were reasons that we chose a roundabout. The intersection of Platt and Bemis that's currently signalized, we will do what we can to try and monitor and improve that intersection with that current configuration. As far as converting that to a roundabout, like Emily said, we have a lot of needs throughout the county that could use some type of improvement, whether that's a signal or a roundabout, over one that already has, and it's already been improved to some extent.
Okay, thanks, Brent. Will the traffic signal at Bemis and Platt be in communications with the new traffic signal going in at Bemis and Carpenter?
It certainly can be. Right now with the distance and all the other impacts, I mean, we can look to see whether or not it would need that type of coordination between the two. And so it would have that ability. But right now we don't have any plans to have any sort of coordination because they're mainly set up, we call it, it's a free mode where it's based on vehicle demand.
Okay, thanks, Brent. And definitely looking at timing, anytime there's construction, we can kind of play around with timing as the road closure. If we need to do that, we'll certainly be monitoring that, just like we do whenever we have a road closure. It usually takes a day or two for the traffic to kind of settle until we see what the plan's going to be. But it's something that we'll continue to monitor. Richard, it looks like you've got a question. Let's see. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Richard.
Okay, just a comment. I know since living in the area, I know the traffic flows pretty well, and the other gentleman commented on it as far as the timing of it, because of that school there, and it's only a couple hours out of the day, but I don't know how the traffic signal alleviates the traffic backups, because if you look at the signal at Textile and Carpenter, that gets way backed up during those, when school lets out, it gets way backed up there also with a signal. So I'm not sure how a traffic signal eliminates those kind of backups anyway, for those couple of hours, but just a comment on it.
Okay, thanks, Richard. Go ahead, Brent.
Yeah, so I appreciate the comment, and like I said earlier, we have the ability to monitor this intersection, and we can change that time by time of day. So if in some cases with that school being so close, it may make more sense to help provide more gaps for that school to get the kids in, but we'll be able to monitor that and change that time by time of day.
Okay, thanks, Brent. Are there any other questions out there? I don't see any other questions in chat. Is there anybody else that would like to virtually raise their hands? Or they can applaud for us, and I'll take that as a raised hand as well if you can't find the raised hand button. Brent and James and Aaron, is there anything you guys would like to add?
We appreciate everyone taking the time today to attend the meeting. Thank you.
All right, great. Well, with that, so as we mentioned, we will post a recording and the slides that we shared today to that project page. There's a link in the chat if you want to have a direct link to that page like I showed a few minutes ago. And so I'll have that posted in the next day or two to our website as we get closer to the road closure. And James, it could start even on Monday, the 26th, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so as we get a little bit closer later into this week, as we look at the weather and things, we will put out additional announcements if the closure is going to be Monday. You can look for that on our website, on our social media. There will be changeable message boards out there as well ahead of the closure. And then we just ask for your patience and to please follow the posted detour or seek an alternate route and help us keep our workforce safe out there and keep yourself safe as well as we try to get in and out as quickly as we can and give you a new road surface and then make our intersection improvements. So thanks everybody for joining us today. We've got Brent and James's contact information here if you need that for anything. And we hope you have a great rest of your afternoon.